Hello and welcome to Net That Haul. Happy Friday. I'm FPL Nima and I'm joined by my co-host at FPLLens on X. Looking forward to this Blank Game Week special, Gabe. Good to see you. How are you? Good morning over in Arizona.
Good morning, Friday vibes. As we say, we got some music going back and forth. I owe you something today, so we'll get you a little Friday tunes. Got a nice chat going on in here. Combs in the house, and some other friends as well, which you'll mention. I'm good. I'm happy it's Friday, and I'm kind of like starting the weekend early here with you, Nima. So I'm ready to have kind of like a lighthearted show with only four matches and 8, not all shitty teams, but oops.
Oh, yeah, no offense to those teams.
Too soon for that one.
But yeah, you'll notice obviously my Niger Prince, Alex Iwobi on the front cover, on the thumbnail. I thought he's being disrespected, and Fulham as a team aren't being spoken about much right now. Obviously, they have what appears on paper one of the tougher fixtures, but everyone says they don't expect clean sheets this week. So I wonder who I might go as my cheeky differential. But I told Gabe before the show that my whole team looks so template, and there's like one slot in the entire attack on my free hit that's exciting. Right now, it's Elanga. Maybe by the end of the show, it will be a Iwobi. Who knows? It could be even Brennan Johnson. It could be anyone. There's literally
Nima,
one.
I'm gonna make it my mission to dismantle your template team and have you go totally friggin' rogue in a game like this. The risk is so low. Like, players aren't going to score a lot of points. So if you don't get the right player, so you miss by like 2 points or whatever. But if you do get the right player, you go up by a lot. So I'm going to work on dismantling your team in this show.
Well, I was concerned when I saw the NetxG summary of the week for the 4 matches and the kind of the assets that are being piled in on or stacked in teams of like double defenses or triple attack. Like, they're not the ones that the NetxG seems to love so much. So I'm keen to hear your tactical insight into why that may be. But yeah, no, it's good to have you back. Let me get to the philosophy to start with, I think, and then we'll go into the matchups. But we'll ease ourselves in as it's Friday, as you say. Another one from the Persian man himself, Rumi. So I always love these ones when it's close to home for me.
As you can tell, your Persian brother Rumi is a personal favorite of mine. This guy is just like he just made this world a better place. So the FPL philosophy for Gameweek29 comes to us from him, and he said, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." And I just think this is coming off of just like a season of like right process, wrong outcome, or that's been a common narrative. I think for a lot of people, and just like where we engage with the haulers here in the chat, if we engage on social media, like we do on YouTube, or if you're on X or whatever, we engage in that process, in that the place of ideas. And even this show, right, this show, we don't engage on like what's the right way to see things or the wrong way to see things. We engage in this is the process of seeing things. This is how we are thinking, not more so than what we are thinking. And that's the field that we like to play. It keeps the game fun for us, I think, when we meet in that field.
Oh, I was on mute there, but after the barking gate incident last week, I tried to mute in between in case there's a trigger of a barkathon goes on in the background. But looks like Bella was right. Ross Barkley was the shout, as she tipped last week. Those of you who found that hidden message and decoded it last week will have enjoyed that handsome haul by him. But yeah, fair play to Bella. I guess she could play FPL better than me this season too. Wow, I've fallen a long way from grace. Maybe I do need to create a team for her, like many of those people out there with teams for their dogs, sitting on their sanctimonious perch, insulting those with 2 teams when they themselves have 2. Very, very, very ironic. But I don't think that's lost on the people in the audience. They know there's a lot of this going on out there in the FPL community. Yeah, I think just in terms of the philosophy itself, this is something that I do agree with a lot. I think it's something I have to remind myself of. I feel like I forget it every few years, and it's like I almost relearn it. Where eventually I feel like I know something to an extent where like what I know is 100% true, and I lose sight of the fact that like in the same way this quote's kind of saying like wrongdoing and right doing, I'm so certain, and like that certainty is crazy because I've grown up trying to embrace a philosophy that the only certainty in life is change. So
Mm.
for me to reach these periods every few years where I then feel certain on something, and then after that almost relearn myself and like remember that that can't be true. This quote feels like it kind of speaks to me in the same sense, where it's like I like kind of like in terms of bringing it to TV shows or movies. I like shows where it's more complex the plot. There isn't like a bad guy and a good guy. Like you have like
Mhm.
good people have bad parts to them and bad people have good parts to them. Like the world isn't so black and white. And I think it's therefore I find it interesting to embrace other views and like that kind of meeting you there in that field. For me, that's like all about learning about someone's experiences that are so different to mine that how could I possibly understand their perspective of what is wrong and
Mm.
right or what is 100% true or not. So yeah, so I think despite the tangent about the barking, I think I got there and found some philosophy in myself today. So I appreciate your quote. The fact that it got me
Um,
thinking quite deeply here on a Friday.
mhm. Yeah, and actually, I'm going to leverage that awareness a little bit and suggest that maybe that feeling of certainty that you were talking about, like you feel so certain of something. Oftentimes, that comes from like external, like validation, where like if a lot of people believe in something, then there must be something to it. There's that safety in numbers,
Mm.
and that takes us back to your very template free hit team. So if you really did learn this lesson, then we're gonna like just begin to question those picks a little bit.
I'm very excited to see what this team ends up on. So I actually only popped the free hit about 15 minutes before the show. And it was the first time that I've put in a free hit team. Like I refused to even think about it before today. I just didn't want to overthink it. I didn't want to, yeah, because with it's like the game week 1 in the season. You have every player in your team, and by the end of it, you just feel distraught, whatever happens, because it's like at some point you considered someone or had them there. So I didn't want to overthink. I just wanted to put what is currently the very basic template team, which is where, as you say, I flock to naturally. And then hopefully today's matchups will slowly unwind that, and I'll actually end up with something a bit more exciting. At least more than one exciting pick would be great to start with. But
let's
the reason, let's
let's
just say
get
there's a
some
back
Friday
four.
vibes into
Yeah,
that free
let's
hit
get it
team. Get
going.
some.
It is. So this was obviously the summary from last time. I think the only main difference that we're hearing, which is a bit crazy, is that because there's a late kickoff tomorrow, there's no 12:30. The deadline for FPL is a bit later at like 1:30, and at that point there's a cup game, I believe. I think an FA Cup game between Shrewsbury and someone, and maybe it's Wolves or something. And whatever happens in that game could have the impact on whether Bournemouth's likely double game week would be in 34 instead of 37. So it doesn't impact me
Mm.
as a free hitter, but I think those who aren't free hitting and are taking like say like a Solanke out for a hit for Ivan Tony, that game before the FPL deadline, it's gonna be like 75 minutes into it. So if it does look like the teams are going to qualify from the prem that we need in that tie, it might be even, it might be 0-0, you might not be able to know. But in that case, it might be that actually you would rather sell someone else. Maybe you don't want to sell like a Solanke in that case, if you then think that he is definitely doubling in 34 and you're not wildcarding. So there's some implications, but beyond that, we still don't know anything else about 34 and 37. So that's the one thing I can share with you. Obviously, go look at Ben Credit and James from Planet FPL. Like they will explain it far more eloquently than I did. So we won't spend any more time there. And yeah, next week after the international break, hopefully we can actually spend some time looking at this, because then we get into the exciting bit where we do have a bit more definitive information. This week, though, starts with Burnley versus Brentford. So this is a 1.62 NetxG and a 1.48 for Burnley. So it's implying a very close game, maybe even a 1-1 or a 2-1 to kind of either team, I suppose. 2-2 wouldn't be out of the question. Is there anything tactically in this that, so just speaking of the kind of free hit that we're dismantling at the moment, I'm on triple Brentford. I don't have any Burnley assets. Should I be rethinking that? Am I going in too deep here?
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. It depends who you have and all of that. I would not be going in on Brentford defense away. I don't like that. And I wrote here, Brentford conceded the second most chances from their left in the last 6 away games, and it coincides with Burnley getting what's his name? Vitinho, right? Is it
Yeah.
Vitinho? Yeah. Getting Vitinho back on, or getting him on the right hand side instead of Gudmundsson, that gives Burnley an attack from that right hand side to take advantage of the left zonal weakness from Brentford there. So I do like Burnley to score, but I in this game I like the two forwards. So that also sent Burnley in a front two. So Odegaard and Fofana are playing as a front two, 1-1 sometimes, but Fofana is more in the box a little bit. Odegaard, I guess, is a little bit deeper, but they are a front two. But I like Odegaard, I like Fofana, I like Tony, and because I don't think, you know how we've seen recently, especially in the past like month or so, Tony has been dropping deeper, doing this like kind of Kane light type role where he drops in to receive the ball, and Wissa's been the one further forward. I think that will continue, but not as much. I don't think they'll want Tony, because Burnley play with like a kind of an intense mid block, and they're not going to want Tony in there. They're going to want Tony in space behind us. So I like them both, but my favorite player in this one is Wissa. If I could get to Wissa, I might captain him. The only thing that would lean towards Tony is the pens, but Wissa and Tony to me are really, really, really close. And like Wissa would be like, if I had a Semenyo type pick for this week, it would be Wissa.
Damn. So they were saying in the chat that obviously you captained Semenyo last week, and they were saying that maybe this week Elanga would be your Semenyo, but you've come out the blocks nice and early. Wissa is this week's Semenyo. We call him, what is it? The Little Prince, or like we can go all the way back to the Alchemist
Little
picks,
Prince pick of the week, the Alchemist
yeah,
pick.
over the years. Do you remember those?
The Don Juan pick, Don Juan for a
the
while.
Don Juan pick. Oh my god, yeah. Before the FPL philosophy of the week existed, guys. If you've been here for the journey this is the 4th season now, I think. So if you've been here for some of the earlier iterations of the picks each week, wow, there's been some memories for sure.
I think Little Prince was my favorite. So Wissa is the Little Prince this week.
Wissa is the Little Prince. Okay, so he is someone who, at the moment, I'm playing a 3-5-2 Gabriel, and I kind of have that third forward on the bench, in the idea that if Watkins isn't actually going to, if he doesn't play, then they would play. But that third forward could be interchangeable with the 5th mid. So where I have kind of that slot, it's either the 5th mid or the 3rd striker that I'm going to play. And see, I was considering this because right now, for me to be able to have Wissa, and that was something I was debating, like a double attack versus double defense on the free hit, I would need to get rid of Flecken, I think, because I don't think I'd get rid of Reguilon. So it's kind of like, then I would need another goalkeeper. So I need to find, so throughout this show, I need to find a goalkeeper pick, and that would convert Morris into Wissa. So straight away, you will have switched 2 template positions of kind of Morris and Flecken in my team to something a bit less template, if I can have that double Brentford attack, Wissa there. Now, whether I start Wissa or not against the 5th mid, that's still obviously an open debate, but he would at least replace Morris. Muniz is another guy I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. So I'm not going to make this switch yet, because it's probably between Muniz and Wissa for me in that slot, I think. But yeah, no, I'm interested to see that. Just a couple of shout outs actually as well. Let's just quickly do these, because then I think what we can do is we'll keep starring the questions for the Q&A at the end, guys. Today we're going to try to get it all wrapped up in 1 hour, do the Q&A for the last 20 minutes. So we'll be getting to the Q&A much quicker than normal. But a few shout outs. So Matt Bugsby, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in, mate. Tricky MF, good to see you. 1FDE, what up, haulers? Colm is loving the thumbnail. FPL Discomfort, I have started your question, buddy. We have Claire FPL Evening All, BW Splitter, howdy all. We have Sebastian Koo, good to see you, buddy. Anybody? I don't want to miss anyone before we keep going. FPL K9, good to see you, mate. I will have a look at that question for you later as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, and we'll keep putting the questions up and comments up on the screen as we go. But for this fixture,
why don't we take we can take,
you want to take any for this one now?
Okay. Take Combs' question right now, because I think it's a really good question, and it does cast a doubt on Wissa. Comb asks, for those in the podcast, he says Wissa should go back out to the wing ? As I think they only play 5 at the back against the top sides. That's true. They usually play a 4-3-3 against sides that they expect to dominate. However, they are very light at the back, so they may play the 5 just to have that security, to have more bodies back there. And Burnley aren't exactly a team that are going to sit deep. They're not going to park. They're not going to sit in a shell. They're going to play that mid block. So do you want to like maybe provide cover while strengthening that midfield to get through Burnley's mid block? Perhaps. So I just think that the injuries could keep them in a back five rather than a back three than a back four. Independently of that, if like the other thing you have to, if they go to a back four, then they're playing a front three. And Wissa can't play with Mopai. So who are you playing? Are you playing like if you play Mopai wide, then his ability to kind of disrupt the opponent is lessened because he's wide and it's less relevant there. And then you have to play somebody like King Lewis Potter. And then it's a big downgrade from Wissa. So the change in structure would mean I think too much of a downgrade in your front personnel as well, while losing coverage at the back. That I think because of the injuries, Frank maybe stays in a back five. I'm not certain of that, but that's kind of my bet.
That's quite an interesting bet actually, because they do seem to kind of have a lot of issues right now with injuries in the back line, and it's almost like with no first choice personnel there, do you just then switch up into something more secure? And they still have the outlets with the two attackers, right? So it's quite interesting. Because obviously I saw them playing against Arsenal, and I found it fascinating the way they had the two attackers, despite like sitting in what is supposedly a low block against the bigger teams. I just something about them is very astute. Like obviously playing them, I felt like we were almost like preparing to play Porto, like having to drag ourselves over the line against Brentford. I was like, oh damn, like yeah, these guys, they are tactically astute. Like even with all the personnel out, they're finding a way to make it as bloody difficult as possible for us. So yeah, I think Burnley themselves in this case, I'm kind of hoping for that the Reguilon and Tony combo from the set pieces. I'm hoping that those two will combine, and that's where my points will come from in this fixture. But other than that, obviously there was news that Reguilon's back now in training and stuff. But I did look at Roycelev, and I brought him in a couple of draft leagues where like Reguilon was already taken. But yeah, I'm not sure about Flecken now. You really put doubts in my mind about this, and I do think that someone from Fafana or Odeberg is going to potentially get a return here. Like I don't see a clean sheet. So do I really need more than Reguilon? Like, can I just get a different goalkeeper? So I'm going to keep looking for that goalkeeper. But Wissa's not 100% because I think it's a bet that they don't play the back four. Obviously, we've seen it more often than not. They have in the past. This would probably be a change, I guess, right? Where actually they're playing a supposed easier team, but still sticking to the back five. I think it makes sense, the logic behind it, but I just don't know what's going to happen. So it puts me a little bit off that second attacker.
Even if Wissa's wide, I think he's a great shout. Maybe not for captaincy then because of that doubt. But I think even a wide player against Burnley, like,
but still it's still Burnley, right?
It's still a wide forward against Burnley. He's gonna get behind that mid block and do damage anyway.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay, let's keep going. We'll come back to some of these players, I'm sure, in like future questions that are relevant. But that was good. We're giving this game 10 minutes. I don't think in a normal week with 10 matchups, a fixture like this would have got 10 minutes. But this week we are desperate for content with just the 4 games to go. So Luton versus Nottingham Forest is another one I'm really struggling to call. Like I have at the moment, I think, what do I have? I have 2 Luton players, 1 on the bench. I have 2 Forest players, 1 on the bench. And those kind of players on the bench could come on if I felt like either team was targetable. This data again shows no clean sheet. Is a Luton Town 1.85 NetxG, Nottingham Forest 1.59. It really likes Luton Town. It likes Luton Town's left zonal for creating chances, 4.2. It doesn't seem to give the kind of the same zonal respect to the Alanga side of the equation here, as everyone who seems to be targeting that side of Luton as a weakness. But what are your thoughts? Because right now I've got Doughty in the 11 home against Forest. It seems crazy not to, just with the number of crosses he's getting in and set pieces. So he's just a given whether I think there's a clean sheet or not. And then I kind of looked at Neco Williams, but I don't know how I feel about Forest away from home defensively. Like, do I really want to be playing that's the thing. Like, do I really want to be playing like a Forest defender away from home at Kenilworth Road, where Luton look pretty good this season, I'd say, and they look like they're the only team in that bottom 3 that can score.
I mean, the stats certainly don't suggest a Forest defender, right? But it's interesting. Like NetxG in the expected threat map favors Luton. Right, we see the two red flanks in the expected threat map on Forest side, just the one red flank on Luton's side. So that favors Luton. The NetxG favors Luton, but the XG map totally favors Forest, including on Elanga's side, and the shot-based goal predictor totally favors Forest. Looking at about, what is that, 47% chance of 2 or more goals for Forest from the shot-based goal predictors. So the metrics are when the metrics kind of like when they all indicate weaknesses of another, then I just think there will be goals. And I've seen Nico Williams. He's getting forward. He's playing that Nuno wingback role. And would you be surprised if just like the promoted team Luton just showed up and they were all of a sudden for a game in a crap game week, Luton show up and they're all of a sudden Luton again, right? And they can't do anything. And it looks like they belong in the championship. And Nico Williams gets an assist and they get a clean.
It's like you see like a Taiwo brace or something, Chris Wood hat trick, something really random out there, like 2-0 Forest, like just out of the blue, like it just happens, right? And that's the kind of thing
and it
that
wouldn't
can
be
happen.
surprising, right?
Yeah, I would not.
Like
be
it would be
surprised
surprising because of Luton recently, but Luton is a small promoted team at the end of the day, and they could turn up in that way when you're dealing with a game week with only 4 matches and they're all crap, and it looks like everybody's going to score. Picking a wing back against a promoted team seems okay to me. I'm fully in favor of Nico Williams as one of the 3 in a back 3, super differential as well, and high chance of paying off. So you have Doughty and Nico Williams. Yes, same game. Throw them the same game.
But imagine that game ended up at 0-0 as well, and they like shared 3 bonus each. You end up there like 18 points from these 2 guys. Oh my god. My biggest issue is like whether I play attackers versus defenders. That's something else I need to think about, because I know it kind of can help you. Well, you have to, but you could not. So you could kind of increase your ceiling, but have a way lower floor if you call each matchup wrong. So like what I mean is like if I was to go for Forest, then I would fade Luton. So I just would not play Doughty. I would not have Morris in the attack. No Barkley. It would just be I go all in. I go like Elanga. I get Nico Williams, and then I try to see if one of Wood or Awinoyi start and play them as well. So I mean like all in, like call 2-3 matches, call them, and just be convinced that that's the result. So for me, this Forest team could do something. I've been disappointed by them lately, is the only thing I will say. And I don't think I can go for either striker as well, as much as I'd love to against Luton, just because of the minutes being shared and like Taiwo, Wood, who's going to start. The Elanga Gibbs White debate, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because Gibbs White, say the idea is he's most likely to be on penalties and people feel he's obviously more nailed on, but I don't feel it's an exciting pick compared to Elanga when we just talked about the XG and how actually on the graphics is kind of in his favor on his side of the pitch. Surely as a 1 week punt, like Elanga having just not started a game, it's as good as it gets, no? Like he's like my 5th mid instead of my 3rd striker right now.
There's probably another mid you can knock off there, and my guess is that it's going to be Bowen, but we'll get to that.
There's also Douglas Luiz or Bailey, one of those two. Like one of them could be out too.
So what I like about this one for Gibbs White is Luton. We've and Lucian FPL teacher has been saying this all season as well. I've been putting it in matchups for months, is that Luton is vulnerable to players who operate between the lines, and Morgan Gibbs White I think will be that player kind of playing the 10. And I think that deep red zonal XG on Luton's side, I don't think that's a good matchup for Taiwo or Chris Wood. I think that's a good matchup for Morgan Gibbs White behind them. So I would definitely not have the 9. I would forget about Taiwo, forget about Wood.
So what about doubling up on both the midfielders? Because that's the alternative. That's when spicy me comes out, where it's like that's the socks off Nima that we talked about a few weeks ago. That's like instead of someone like a shitty Douglas Luiz, it would be Morgan Gibbs White and Elanga. They'd be my 2 mids, and I'd just like go all in on this fixture. Even start Nico Williams.
Yeah, I do like it. I think in order, I guess from Forest, I would say Elanga's my top pick. because of that wide area against a back five. Second one would be well, no, I mean this is just from Forest, right? Is I think Neco Williams would be second.
Wow,
Because I
that's
think there
making me
is
really excited by him.
I really like him, and then third would be Gibbs White, and I think that's a spicy three to have on a free hit and something. You're Luton has been good at home, but you're attacking a promoted team in a
This is what I
game
mean.
week
Like, I
where
want to go
most
against people, right? So my mindset is that
yeah.
everyone who's not on a free hit is likely to have gone deep on Luton with the double and then no blank, right? So I'm almost like
Mhm.
going totally against the field of people not on free hit, but also most free hitters. I don't think they're going to go for double Forest attack. And Wood and Taiwo just felt so off to me. I didn't really consider before this the idea of both midfielders because I had like that template midfield. I thought like, oh, there's no more slots for another. I was trying to squeeze in that second Forest attacker somewhere else, but to me, it seems like why wouldn't I target Luton on a free hit? Like in my mind, that's where I thought like everyone else has Luton players because they think Forest at home is the good fixture. But what if Luton are the easy fixture? Like I've already got triple Brentford as well for like what I consider the other easy fixture, right? Which is Burnley, another promoted team,
Right.
and the third promoted team ain't here to target. So I kind of want to have like 6 out of my 11 are targeting the two promoted teams.
Two
And
promoted
then you
teams.
throw in someone like a Doughty and be like, okay, look, if I get this completely wrong, if I completely fuck it and none of my Forest players get a return, maybe I get a clean sheet from my Luton defender. That's like kind of where I'm at.
When you have so few games, like in a game week, that makes sense, right? I think that does make sense, especially for this fixture. And would you be surprised if this ended 0-0, stats aside?
Not at all. No, like obviously
Not
the
at all,
stats
right?
imply like a high scoring draw, but
Yeah.
this game has a 0-0 all over it.
It,
Like
oh,
both
it
teams
could
could
be
do nothing.
3-3. It could be 0-0. I don't know, but I think the 0-0 is more likely here than in
The first game,
most
right?
than
The
any or
oh, okay.
maybe even any of the other games.
Fine. All right. Well, we'll keep going. This one's had a good 10 minutes to it as well, which is again more than I think it would ever normally get. But shout out to our friend Ash, who's obviously a big Luton fan. He's slowly converting us all as we go along. So let's see, what is the third game? It is Fulham versus Tottenham. This one I'm interested in because the NetxG seems to be very different to this is the one that caught my eye when I saw the summary before the show. So 1.73 NetxG for Fulham to 1.56 for Spurs. Seems very much that I've underestimated Fulham here. I think a lot of people have. I put Iwobi on the thumbnail, partly in jest, but maybe there's something to it. Maybe Muniz and Iwobi are the guys. Maybe this is if you think that Tottenham are always going to score, and then you also think whoever they play is also going to score, and the way they're going to win is to outscore their opponent, then I don't think it's so bad to be considering like an Iwobi or a Muniz. Maybe Muniz is ahead of Wissa with that in mind. What are your thoughts? Because Tottenham will play, like they will come to play, like they will leave space. He's been a revelation. Like he's genuinely like they finally found someone since the Mitrovic era that might look like he could take the striker position and make it his own going forwards.
Yeah, so let's start with Fulham since they're home, and I have a question for Colm, who's in the chat, who's our resident Fulham advisor. And I wrote it here. Where is that? So Broya needs to play 60% of the games since the loan for Fulham to avoid a £4 million loan fee. He can accomplish this if Broya starts the remaining 10 games for Fulham. So Silva has a philosophical dilemma, right? Does he start Broya in those games and save his club the £4 million, or does he choose football? Does he play Muniz, who's in good form, who's clicking with the team? I don't know what he's going to do here. Like I want my transfer to be Semenyo to Muniz. I need to keep the 4-5 so I can afford Salah in next game week in 30. But now I'm just not sure. I want to believe Silva will choose football, but I don't know. What do you think?
So I did read something about this. So apparently there's a bit of misinformation in how it's being dressed up, but it's being made to sound that if he doesn't play all the remaining games, essentially, because that's like 10 games basically, not only does he have to start, it's not like he starts this one game and then it's good. Like he needs to play pretty much every game from now to
All
the end of the season. So in their
yeah,
mind, they're saying, well, they would have known this. And if their plan was to avoid paying whatever the extra will be for not playing him the right amount, they would have started giving him minutes at other points somewhere. Like they wouldn't have
that
waited
makes
till the
sense.
last possible week and they'd be like, now we're going to force him in and just not play him every game to avoid this fee. So I think that's one thing that reassures me about Muniz is like a pick, especially if he's like going to facilitate like a Salah in the future, not being on wildcard for some people, for example. The other thing though is that apparently like it only increases the fee from what I understand, Gabe, and maybe Colin can clarify by like 400k. Now that number might be wrong, but the general gist is that they're still going to have to pay like 3.6 million or something significant, regardless. There's just that little bit more they'd have to pay, and in the grand scheme of things, the prize money for finishing higher in the table by playing the better player surely covers more than whatever this slightly excessive fee on top of what they've already have to pay is. Like even if that's paid the whole 4 million, I think like the difference between say like 14th and 12th or 12th and 10th, like that is
Would
way
be more
more
than 4
in the
million.
millions. Yeah. So like either way, I just don't see a world in which they would do that just for that. But FPL K9 raises the point that Raul Jimenez is back in training. But I think the thing for me here is like I don't see how he gets a start. Like he's coming back from a hamstring injury, is my understanding. So I just don't see why you would take something in what's going to be probably a very intense game and like start Raul from the start, just having recovered from a hamstring injury, and the game's going to be that kind of high tempo and like it's going to be that
When you have an
basketball game
informed
as well.
striker already, like
Yeah,
why
yeah,
take
like the
the
guys,
informed striker out?
yeah, it
You don't
makes
even know
no
if Raul
sense.
will be in form. Yeah, yeah.
And we said it that
So
even like Willian's not been getting in either, right? Because the others have been playing so well that since Willian himself came back from injury, he couldn't get back into the starting lineup. So it's like I appreciate maybe long term that's not great for Muniz's minutes. There's a few of them now fit, but for this week specifically, I just don't see how like anyone displaces Muniz for this specific week. What are your thoughts on Jimenez?
yeah,
And
okay.
like this?
So yeah, no, I think all of that makes sense, and I honestly, Muniz is likely my transfer in this week. I think he can score against Spurs here. The left zonal for Fulham, which is where it will likely be playing, is at 3.7. So I see, and we see the kind of like the flanks and the XG zonal and the XG map there, the zonal, the right lights up. So I kind of see the left, Fulham's left, creating for the center and the right. And so I see Iwobi as kind of like the creative centerpiece of Fulham, trying to kind of get in behind Porro, even though Porro hasn't been getting forward as much as he has in the past. I don't think there'll be a lot of space behind Fulham and at home on the smaller field. So I still think Son is an obvious choice. I would definitely have a Son on free hit or free transfer, whatever. Just get him. But I'm not super bullish on him. I think he'll get his return or something like that. But if it's an assist, that wouldn't surprise me. Someone in the chat mentioned Kulusevski. I do think that there could be some creativity, like some chance creation from that side, from Kulusevski's side. And I so it's, but I don't see Kulusevski getting a goal per se. But that being said, I never really see Kulusevski getting a goal, so that might be my own bias on that one. But in this one, Son, I don't mind it will be as a shout. And Muniz. Oh, and I prefer, I don't know, again, maybe Colm can tell us here. I do prefer Fulham if De Cordova Reed is starting on the right hand side, just because he provides more like penetration and goal threat than Kearney or Harry Wilson.
Yeah, well, we'll see what Colm says. For now, he says that his order for like I guess the starting striker is Muniz first, Broha, and then Jimenez. So Jimenez is even further behind in the pecking order than Broha, who needs the minutes to not pay the loan fee. So it's like there is a whole group of them out there waiting. And also, I doubt that there will be two forwards on the bench. Let's see how it is. Shout out as well to Ballroom Jam. Good to see you, mate. I think we take this question now because we still have a few more minutes for this specific matchup from Sir Matt Bugsby. Because then it makes more sense to take
Yeah,
it
it's a
now
good question.
tactically. Yeah, exactly. I think when there's a tactical question and it's not FPL, I like to just make sure that you cover them during the tactical matchup part. It's always more fun. Cool. So Fulham's left behind Robinson. always looks shaky to me. Maybe Ant should play Johnson there for more direct play. While you answer that, I'm trying to go open the front door, but just take that one away, Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, it does look shaky because Robinson is always he always has to recover because he does get forward and he likes to run. But I think he has better players on that left-hand side. For example, I think oh yeah, Palinha will be back, so he'll be playing that. Hold on, I'm just bringing them up here right now really quickly. So Palinha should be at that left center mid position, whereas on the other side you have Harrison Reed. Now Harrison Reed has a good game or two in him, but he's definitely not as good as Palinha, obviously. And then I just think Anthony Robinson and Calvin Bassey are better defenders than Castagne and Adarabioyo as a so like that defensive triangle of Reed, Tosin, I'm just saying Tosin, and Castagne is weaker than Palinha, Robinson, Bassi triangle. So but that you're right. That side does open up when Anthony Robinson gets forward like that. Oh, and as far as Spurs defenders, yeah, for that reason, I also prefer Udogi to Porro because and I think Porro will be used to like he has been, be kind of held back to hold Anthony Robinson back. Even though Castagne does like to get forward, I do think that they'll focus on that side a little more. Yeah, Udogi over Porro for this game week for me.
Nice. So we answered Michael's question there as well, 2 for 1. But that's interesting for me because I am on the free hit as we mentioned, and I'm currently on Porro, but I don't know if that's just because it's like I always have both. I've had both of them this season. And I have each of them at the wrong time, so I don't really know how to feel about it. But based on what you said, I do wonder if Udogi could be an interesting shout. I think with Madison back, I do expect like Porro to not have as many avenues to points. It's just one of my kind of like just my general gut feel there. Equally though, the training video of Spurs today, like no one can find Madison in this video. Now, obviously, he's probably fine, as is always the case with these things. But that again also then makes me think, oh, okay, we're hearing Richarlison's back. He's fit. He's been training since Tuesday. Does he start? Probably not. But then suddenly you're like, oh, but where's Madison in these videos? And it's just enough to put some doubt in me, like where I'm thinking, do I need to last minute potentially have to make that switch, like Madison to Richarlison? What impact does that have on Son as a captaincy option? Like, there's so many things that we find out last minute. Does Elanga start or not? But it's just like it feels like this game has, especially now on my free hit, become a thing where if I don't field 11 starters on my free hit, I'll be beating myself up, Gabe. It's like I've used the chip and then I've ended up with a player that didn't start. Like I have enough of that week to week with those pricks Lamperty and Estupinian, but luckily you avoided a rant because obviously they're not playing this week. But it's just dawned on me that they gave me one more big middle finger on their way out when I sold that bastard Estupinian for Kirkes and lost 10 net points. Yeah, so thank you guys.
I think
get out my team.
I think what I will say is I don't want a Spurs defender away against a decent team like Fulham. I mean, I think the three defenders for me they kind of pick themselves, and it's Reguilon since he's fit. I didn't put him in. I put my hypothetical free hit online, but I didn't know Reguilon was fit at the time, so he would be in instead of Udogi, and it would be Nico Williams and Doughty. Reguilon, Doughty, and Williams would be the three for me. And even I don't like Madison in this matchup either. I think Fulham can clog that central midfield. I think another yellow card is a definite for Palinha in this one. And I think he's gonna like bang Madison around. That won't be where it'll be easy for Spurs. I think it'll be easier for Spurs in the places where Son is going to be, and that's why I still like him. But I would not be going Spurs defense with other defenders playing worse teams, I guess.
You've got me thinking. I'm definitely really intrigued now because some of the midfielders I can't fit in is the ones that I obviously want to play like double Forest mid, right? But if I was to like remove a Madison in that situation, suddenly it's very easy to fit in some of these players that I don't want to get, rid of in my punts.
Just dismantling that free hit.
I think I would still have Porro, but it would just be that is he the one that gets benched for Neco Williams? Because now I'm trying to find a way to get Neco Williams onto this pitch. Now it's like, which of these three bastards in the back line isn't going to make it? Who's not going to make it? Is it Reguilon? Is it Doughty? Or is it the Spurs defender? One of them, by the end of tomorrow's deadline, needs to be on the bench, ideally, because I really want to play Neco Williams based on what we said today. We'll answer this question on Royce-Lev real quick as well before we go. Actually, no, let's come back to that because we've given this game 10 minutes as well, more than 10 minutes. We'll do the last matchup, and then that way we can just do questions for the remaining 20 minutes, which is probably better. So West Ham versus Aston Villa. Oof. 1.91 NetxG for Aston Villa. 1.32 for West Ham. That is not what I was expecting with Aston Villa playing away from home. It is a do or die game for them, though, for top four, I would argue, because they're going to play on the Sunday knowing if Spurs have won the day before. And after having already lost points in that top four battle against them in a 6-pointer, if Spurs have won the next game, I think Aston Villa are going to be well up for this. I appreciate that they've got some major midfield injuries, which maybe the data wouldn't be picking up on, with the likes of Kamara and now McGinn suspended for his red card. I'd love to know how you think that might disrupt them, perhaps, compared to what the data's saying. But then West Ham as well, I do think that they've obviously just played as well. I know they both played, but they've had a massive game against Freiburg, is it? And they've just absolutely hammered them like 5-0 or something. Like, we're talking like Kudus brace, Paqueta goal, Bowen goal. Like, Antonio's come back after God knows how long from injury and started. They look like a different team. So I do wonder if there's some things here tactically that haven't been picked up, which is like, if Antonio starts again, they have an actual centre forward, not Bowen again this weekend. And then, but Villa are fighting for their lives, but they're missing their entire midfield spine. This is a big game for me on free hit. I'd love to know what you think just based on some of those things I've thrown at you. I appreciate a lot of different things, but right now I kind of have like the likes of Cresswell in my mind. Antonio is a cheeky punt. You know, it could be anyone. Bowen, Kudus, Bailey, Douglas Louis. There's so many assets like Matty Cash, like Lucas Dean. Like, honestly, I could like fill a whole team with just 6 of these players, but I can't call the tie either way. And that's where I'm hoping you can help me, because every other fixture this week, I feel like I can call the ties. Like, I'm backing Forest to beat Luton, you know. I'm backing Tottenham to beat Fulham, probably. Like, I'm backing Brentford to beat Burnley. This tie, I have zero idea, Gabe. Zero idea. That's where I'm going to throw that grenade over to you like a hot potato and pray that you have a better idea than I do about this matchup.
I mean, so let's start with West Ham. The Villa injuries are really good for West Ham. I can't understate that. I can't say that enough, because what happened is Villa lost their two central midfielders, right? And West Ham gained players. Paqueta is back. So they'll have Edson Alvarez and Souček up against Douglas Luiz and replacement options, right? So I think what that does is it opens up the passing lanes for Paqueta. So I think West Ham will be hitting balls from deep, directly to Bowen, directly to Kudus. And I think that scenario works well for them. Now, from an attacking perspective, I'd say the only one from West Ham, and I would not be like, West Ham are so dysfunctional in the terms. What I mean by dysfunctional is that the things that they try to do end up in kind of chaotic on the field, and their open play isn't reliable, I guess, because it's not consistent. So I wouldn't want much investment in West Ham at all. Certainly zero defensive investment. I think talks of Cresswell.
So Soufal's on my bench, but Cresswell was like, oh, maybe I'll get Cresswell instead of Soufal. But you're saying don't even have the bastard on my bench in case he subs on and gets minus.
Don't even have him on the bench. He'll contaminate the bench. He'll be a cancer in the locker room. You don't want these guys.
I don't want to disrupt my entire team for that. Yeah.
And
so would
from
you prefer
West Ham,
a Villa
I
defender
think,
or equally no go as well? Like, I need someone to put on the bench. I need a bench playing defender. There's not really many defenders to pick from, as you know.
So I'll throw like, and the reason, I don't know, there's a question on, people are considering Areola as well. Areola is a little bit different because he could get you some save points. So I guess that's not So I guess Areola isn't out of the question. That's not a terrible shout. But like from West Ham's perspective, I think Kudus is the only one I would have. He's the only player I would have in my starting 11. And the reason is Kudus's movement. He'll play the 10. He'll be on the right. He'll be on the left. He'll move forward, and he moves into pockets of space that will be there because Aston Villa are missing those midfielders. So I think Kudus he's even above Bowen despite the pens and yeah, forget about Antonio or any defender and anyone else. So I would say like Kudus is great and maybe consider Areola, but to get to West Ham, to use that to get to Villa, I prefer Martinez. I think West Ham will have opportunities. Martinez has the best goalkeeper metric of the game week. It's a +4. That's why it's red. It's red because it's +4 for the other team. So that's how much he will take away from the other team. It's minus the goalkeeper. Think of the NetxG minus the goalkeeper. So I think Martinez, and he's just the best goalkeeper, like between him and Leno, right? Martinez is facing West Ham and Leno's facing Spurs. So it would be between those two. Leno maybe being at home may sway it for some people, but yeah, I would go Martinez for Villa and Bailey. If you look at that deep red in the XT map on West Ham's left, and so that right hand side for Bailey, I think especially if Watkins is out, we don't know what the state of Watkins is. He probably needed stitches. We don't know how deep the wound is or anything like that. So we really have little.
Just had a cut, right? But I think the problem with him was he then didn't obviously appear, but he's like off for 3 weeks, including international break. But his was in a very weird place at the instep of his foot. So I do think with Watkins like not being in such an awkward place that you're going to be kicking the ball non-stop with, it's going to need some rest for Martinelli in comparison. It does seem that Watkins is like, surely he either goes and starts or he doesn't play at all. So I think like on a free hit, like in my case, I'm still going to have him and start him, obviously. And I don't think anyone who doesn't have a free hit would sell him. Like that's a bit crazy, to be honest. There's probably other players you can sell that don't play. But yeah, overall, I think that's where that kind of my sub comes into play, right? So my third striker, that Wissa, Muniz, Fofana, Morris, that one of those guys might end up playing if Watkins is out. But I'm not really that nervous about Watkins. Like I'm pretty sure he's gonna play. Famous last words, but like I feel relatively comfortable he will. But if he didn't, and I didn't have Leon Bailey, and I went Douglas Luiz instead with the bloody Kamara and McGinn situation, I would be beating myself up. I would see that as a massive loss pre-kickoff if I saw that team sheet and Watkins wasn't on it, and Bailey is playing, and I've got Douglas Luiz. So that's another change I'll probably be making after this. Is I'll most likely be switching Douglas Luiz to Leon Bailey as one of the changes on my free hit. I did feel Leon Bailey was more exciting, but some of those early subs just have me a little bit concerned. But on a free hit for 1 week, like I think if I had to buy it for the long term, it would still be Douglas Luiz personally. But just for this 1 week with the matchup in question, seeing where the expected threat is being conceded from zonally as well, favoring him, I'm team Leon Bailey, I'd say, after this stream. So very happy about that.
Yeah, and I mean, if Watkins plays, then I think this matchup lines up really nicely for him. I actually changed. I was about to post yesterday, and I changed the slide after learning that Watkins went down, and it's just like not knowing is the risk. I don't know that I totally subscribe to the narrative that if he doesn't start, he won't play. I don't know that I think that's what people want to believe. So they can say, oh, so I'll have him in my team and I have my first bench. But I don't think that's necessarily true.
And we won't really know before deadline as well. So it's not like you can easily decide to bench him. If you knew he was you could bench him if he's in like your team and you've got a bench if you knew, but you're not going to know. This is the Sunday game. You're going to have to make a call, right?
And I think that's why like a 3-5-2 covering Watkins with Bailey and you go with Tony and Wissa up top makes sense, and you forget about Watkins. But it depends on what you believe. If like yourself, because since we don't know, you just have to choose what you believe, right? If you believe that he does play, that it's a minor injury and he does play and it's not in a tricky area, all things that make sense. If you believe that, then Watkins has to be in your team. I think the game lines up really nicely for him.
No, I do like that. I think just to add here as well, so Claire says Arteta said the other week Martinelli would hopefully be fit, hasn't played since yet. So I think this is, I guess, exactly the point, right? It's like, do you subscribe to the view that pretty much the same thing at a cut is going to keep him out because it's kept Martinelli out, it's going to keep him out of international duty? I subscribe to the view that I've seen the photo. I can see his flesh. Watkins' flesh doesn't look great. He looked in pain, but even if he's totally fine, like 3 days later after being subbed off, why would he ask to be subbed off in such an important game that early on, right? Unless there was a problem. So it's kind of like that. The other
Well,
side of the thought is that he won't play.
even though the score hadn't gotten there yet, they were dominating the game. It was a cut, so the cut needs to be tended to immediately. You don't know like what else. So there may have been like other complications, and they did have subs. So you could definitely weave the narrative that that it was a precautionary substitution, that they know how important the league is, and he was taken off because they felt good about the way that game was going, and they needed to focus on West Ham. And Watkins starts and he plays. You know, you can spin any narrative you want, and it'll make some sense. We just don't know.
Fair enough. Okay, let's keep going because we can then get to the Q&A for the last 15 minutes. Before that, if you're on podcast, 51 minutes in, this is where we have the timestamp for the matchup summary. It includes all of the NetxG, all the data, the zonals, the shot-based goal predictors as well, and the goalkeeper metrics for every single matchup this week. I think this is the one I'd seen before we went live, and this is when I remember looking and thinking, oh, wow, Aston Villa's the best NetxG of the week, 1.91. Luton's there as well with 1.85. Fulham with 1.73. Then I saw Brentford 1.62. I was like, damn, Spurs are down here. So then I was like, okay, look, like I can't take these all as they are because they're all so close. And the biggest takeaway for me is that like every single one of these teams seemed like they could win. So it's like, I think someone said it in the chat. I'm trying to find the message, but they basically said, like, this is Sir Matt Bugsby. He was like, all games will end 1-1 or 2-1. I honestly would not be shocked if that was all four score lines. Like, it just feels like such a bogey week. Like, whatever you pick, like, it's just going to be some disastrous game. Like, people are knackered. A lot of them played on Thursday as well, right? And it's like they're just trying to just lump into the international break, just get over the line. Like, they can just relax a little bit and then go for the really busy April period when it gets super.
It does feel like a week of very little rank movement. Don't expect like massive one way or another. So and yeah, it's just like get through it. Let's rest in the international break, and then we'll start playing again in 30.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. So let's just quickly give a quick thank you to all the haulers, and then we will go straight to the Q&A. So just having a quick look. So we have all our super haulers: FPL Robbie, Greenback Golf, Harbour Boy, David Harrison, FPL Discomfort, and True Fandela. Thank you to our haulers as well. Dread FPL. Just a quick shout out to Julian as well. Hope you get well soon, mate. Seen he's put on X that he's currently recovering, and he's in hospital at the moment. So we were really upset when we heard the news, and our thoughts are with you and wishing you a swift recovery, Dread. And yeah, we really appreciate you and all your support over these years. I think you're maybe our first member, and you've always been subscribed for like years now. So shout out to you, Dread, and I hope you get well soon, man. Good to see you smiling in the photo you kindly shared online to let us all know you're okay. And I hope you're being flooded with lots of messages of support and love. But yeah, also to the rest of our haulers, FPL Craig, Podner, Blonde, S. Scott M, Tom Gorsuch, Devindra Raj, Lindsay, Sihan, Akshay, FPL DG Boy, Claire, Catherine, Harry Not Kane, Benjamin Lockwood, Nick Khan, FPL Rubber Ducky, Big Mike, General Zod, FPL Planner, Brett M, Mark Bond, Kevin Rose, FPL Eric, FPL Teacher, Donny FPL, Grady, Sebastian Koo, Neil, Parag, BW Splitter, Jasker and Singh, Tusks, and Dom. Last but not least, our Patreons, Elron, Lucian Gann, FPL California, and Daddybot, Mike Burke, Dr. Green Farm, Draft Alchemy, and Michael Rodriguez. So thank you all for your support. 54 minutes into the show. If you enjoyed it so far, you find it entertaining, if we answer your question or we're about to in the live Q&A and you find it helpful, please do hit that like button. I think it's the first time we're asking, as usual, at about an hour into the show. But yeah, please do hit that like button if you've had a good show today, and a happy Friday. So we go straight to the Q&A. I'm just going to timestamp this as well so that anyone who's not been able to watch the whole show with the short turnaround can come back and find their questions answered. As always, we will start with the questions from the YouTube members and Patreons on Discord, and then we'll go to the 24 questions I've started in the live chat from today's show. So yeah, please do get any other questions you have left in, because we're only going to go for another 10 minutes or so. Cool. So where are we at? This is from Don Black Dragon. Game week 29 with 6 players, or take -4, -8, -12. So -4 is for 7 players, -8 is for 8 players, -12 is for 9. Or is it free hit time? To me, that's like a free hit personally, because I don't know who your 6 players are, but I imagine it might include stuff like I had with like Charlie Taylor and like just a few rogue picks there. Now Watkins might be a bit of a doubt. Areola and goal I have. So I'm not sure I weigh each option as heavily as others. I think in any blank game week game, I don't know if you agree. For me, it's about just having like the main 6 to 7 players, I'd say. A lot of the rest of it is just naff. I don't think you really need it. A lot of it's going to be appearance points. And I certainly wouldn't be taking hits for any defender this week, personally. I'd be focusing on a hit for the attack if you did that. I would free hit with 6, but you might have 6 as well now, Gabe, and you're probably not free hitting, right? So I don't know how many you have.
No,
but...
I have 4 or 5.
And will you take a hit for, I guess, an attacker or for no
I'll
one?
take. So I should have brought Son in last week, as suspected, but I couldn't bench Tony for Son, so I brought Son in this week. That was always planned, and I'll probably take a hit. I'll go Semenyo to Muniz. But I honestly, like I said, I don't think there will be big swings this week, in terms of rank. So I think this question, it depends on like how many chips you have remaining, what chips you have remaining. You know, there are 2 more double game weeks, so can you use a free hit in one of those game weeks? If not, like if you want to use a bench boost and a triple captain, you haven't used those. Use those 2 in those 2 game weeks, and you might as well use the free hit in this game week since there's no real other game week to use it. So, but if you can save it, I think your team is in a position where you can likely save it with a -4 and field 7 or something like that. And
Yeah, like I
that's
wouldn't go
more
to the
that's
-12, for
definitely enough.
example. Yeah, I think the
Nah,
-4 would be the most I would. If you're looking to take -8s, -12s or beyond, I think at that stage I'd be like, you know what, maybe I just use the free hit and get on with it. But I think for a -4, 7 players, it seems okay. Yeah, I think just a question from BW Splitter, penalty related about stats. He was just asking more occasionally, like, this is one for you, Gabe, maybe you know, but he said if the player is mid-shot when a penalty occurs, is XG still calculated and added to their totals? So I think he was trying to understand like how the XG gets taken into account, because I know we talk about post-shot XG versus just XG, and obviously post-shot XG takes into account the person making the shot, I guess, and their quality, whereas normal XG is supposed to be universal. And it doesn't account for the shot
XG,
itself, right? Or the goalkeeper or anything.
it's a little counterintuitive because XG needs a shot. There's no expected goal without a shot, right? But XG does not factor in the quality of the shot. So it's
So
all of the
how it's hit, which
conditions.
part of the foot is hit on, like none of that.
Yeah. So it's all of the conditions before the shot is taken, but the shot must be taken in order for there to be an XG that's generated from that play.
That makes sense. And then the post-shot XG counts for everything else. So that's so the only
Right.
XG that exists after the shot is actually taken, that mid-shot, after the boot leaves the ball, that is the post-shot XG. But equally, XG can't exist before the boot hits it either. So I see what you mean by it's
Right.
counterintuitive. Yeah, it's quite hard to wrap a head around that one.
Yeah.
So we have one more. We have Don Black Dragon was asking, will a free hit be more beneficial in game week 34 or 37? Depends what the chips you have, as we said, but personally, I'm going to be bench boosting at 37, so it would be like free hit 34. But it's like the teams that are playing, right? We're looking at teams like United and Newcastle, most likely to have the best doubles in 34. And then the kind of question from there, I guess, is do you want to just bring in 6 players from those teams on a free hit, get loads more doublers than you would otherwise, and then build towards 37, like I plan to with a bench boost? Or if you don't have a bench boost or because you've already used it and had success with that elsewhere, free hit 37
I like
can be quite exciting.
I like it 34 because I like the bench boost better than 37. I think
That's the way
the
I'm
I think the
looking at it.
fixtures
Yeah.
are better in 37, and in 34 there are like some awkward ones, right? Like I would consider tripling up on United attackers, for example, against Newcastle. Both games home, Newcastle and Sheffield United, right? Would you want to bring in like a Doucouré or a McNeil for Everton, Forest and Liverpool at home? I don't know. Palace players, right? Do you want to
Mm.
like these are players that you don't want to see through, but that have like some really interesting matchups. So I would do 34.
Fair enough. And then this is just a final question from the Discord from BW Split, and then we'll go to the live chat questions, which there's nearly 30 of now. So it's growing. We have, do you think Muniz will start given Raul is now fit? I was going to use my free hit on Watkins, but now that he's gashed up, I'm presented with the opportunity to go bargain basement in Muniz. Okay, this will allow me to bring in Salah, Haaland, and Foden in the next few weeks with no hits. So by getting Muniz this week, it would allow BW Splitters to bring in Salah, Haaland, and Foden in the coming weeks with no hits. I think that funds quite a lot of powering up everywhere in your team. So I think what
Yeah.
we said earlier is we would not be afraid of Raul taking that start from Muniz immediately. And I think in the matchups for that section, if you go back to the timestamp for the Fulham game, Cohen obviously inputted as well. For him, the order at the moment is actually Muniz, Broha, and then Raul. So I wouldn't be too concerned this week. And I know, Gabe, you're probably going to buy Muniz this week as well yourself. So
Yeah, I would love to buy Wissa, but if I buy Wissa, then I can't. Then I won't have enough for Salah next week. So Muniz is probably my transfer in Semenyo to Muniz to keep that 4-5, so I can then afford Salah next week.
sounds good. What's up, partners, as well? Good to see you, buddy. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go to the Q&A from the chat today. So Tricky MF is the first one. Does the McGinn suspension mean Villa assets can be sold with better long-term fixtures for other teams? So obviously I don't condone selling anyone who plays this week, but if the question is should you sell like a Douglas Luiz in future week, then that's not a bad shout. I think the McGinn suspension is 3 games minimum, right? So he's definitely going to be out for at least until game week 32 when he would be back, I imagine. And I don't know if I'd be selling them though. Yeah, I just feel like there's. Let us know, Tricky, what you mean for in terms of if it's this week specifically. Because if it's this week, I just don't see a world in which I would do that. But
It depends on the asset as well. I mean, they have City and Arsenal in the next 4, so I could see you selling to go in a different direction. Maybe a team that could be blanking in 34. So I think they're sellable, but
I
not
was like, I looked at
necessarily.
like, for example, like I did actually look at like removing Watkins for the 3 weeks when those fixtures you mentioned are including City and Arsenal and these guys. So I did consider that. I think Brentford's one of them as well. So it's like a run of 3 games that I didn't particularly like, and I would be more open to it now. But that would be a decision for a future week for me. And a lot can change between now and then. So Matt Bugsby, Awobi, eh? So I've got him in nearly every draft team, as is the case. But he's had a few great appearances lately. He seems to be everywhere doing everything. He's like, honestly, just I'm so happy to see him succeed and continue to crack on from the last few good seasons he's been having. But I don't see Spurs keeping a clean sheet. You know, everyone's talking about Muniz. He's the hot topic right now. And someone's going to have to provide support for him and be part of that. And whether it's Harry Wilson who starts or whether it's Willian who starts, I think either way, Iwobi is the one who definitely starts between those guys. So I think like he could play
Yeah.
either wing, he can play anywhere, he will play. So I really like Iwobi. That's why he was on the thumbnail. But it helps that he scored a late winner against someone. But I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to slander teams that are not playing this week. So I'll move on. Old friend Polinia doing the work again. So I think that was just earlier related to the matchup. So this is one from FPL Discomfort. Okay, so this is not a free hit because he needs 2 of these players to play next week. So right now he has okay, so he says Forest, Fulham, Villa. So he wants players from those teams only, right? Forest, Fulham, and Villa. 2 midfielders, 1 striker, or 3 mids. So we can either pick 3 mids from Forest, Fulham, and Villa, or 2 mids and a striker. For me, it would be 2 mids and a striker. It would be Watkins, and the 2 mids would be Elanga and Iwobi. That would be my free. Actually, no, it would be Elanga. I lie. It would be Elanga, Bailey, and Watkins. That would be my free. It would have to be Leon Bailey after we said earlier. So I'm sorry, Iwobi. I betrayed you there. But what about you? Would it be 3 mids or 1 striker and 2? I have a feeling that he's not going to buy Watkins and he wants me to say Muniz or a different striker, but it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah, I know Kieran's trying to decide whether to go in on Watkins, so I'll make it difficult for him, and I'll say and I'll say Muniz, Elanga, and who was the other one? Bailey. Muniz, Elanga, and Bailey.
Cool. All right, let's keep going. Yeah, so these are just some comments, so I won't put them all out. Okay, we've already answered a lot of these. So K9, I think we've already answered about Raul. So I think I would just go back if you missed it to the Fulham timestamp at the end of the show. 2 free transfers this week. Haaland to Muniz. That allows me to force Salah and 30, free hit 34, and already wildcarded. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. It's a tough one. I feel like if I was going to sell Haaland, it would have been last week for me personally. But maybe this has opened an option for you to buy a Muniz instead of a Morris. So maybe actually it's more exciting in that sense. Depends what you plan to do, because you're saying you've used a wild card. So once you buy Salah with that Haaland money, do you plan to get Haaland back? If you don't, then that's fine. But if you do, then I would think twice, and I would just not do that move and maybe use 2 free transfers next week to find a different way to Salah. We've already answered about Wissa going back on the wing at the time in the matchup, so we'll keep going. Okay, so this was the moves. Okay, this is the actual full moves. 7 players, 2 free transfers. Bailey to Salah and 30, Watkins to Haaland. Okay, there is a plan to get Haaland back. Okay, yeah, I like it more knowing that there is a way back. I like it a lot more, actually. So how worthwhile are hits for attackers not named Tony, Son, Maddison, or Bowen? Because you would argue that neither Maddison or Bowen are worth the hit. And actually, in those cases, someone like a Leon Bailey, Morgan Gibbs-White, Elanga, even a Wobie, like there's a lot of midfielders you prefer to Maddison and Bowen. So would you say that there are definitely attackers out there that warrant hits? I think compared to defense, there is, that's for sure. But any names that I've not named that you would take a hit for in the midfield position or striker position?
I don't think so. I think it depends on your chip strategy, to be honest. I mean, Madison and Bowen could be good long-term picks, right?
True.
I mean, I wouldn't want Bowen, just personal preference. I want to kind of understand what a team is doing tactically and stuff, so I can kind of look at patterns and predict. And Bowen's not that player. He's just like he gets returns every once in a while. So and he has good fixtures. So but yeah, and it depends what your strategy is. If you're looking to bring Salah in, and if you want to make some money, and if you want to go down to Elanga, or if you need to go down even further, if you need to go down to a 4-5, there's just too many other variables, I think.
Yeah, I think we're at that team specific part of the season. It's hard to answer these in isolation. What else do we have here? So worth reshuffling. All right, so Tricky MF, I assume, is not on free hit because they're trying to fill their back 5 this week and play a 5-2-3. Mad question. I don't want to lose Foden. So they want to kind of play only 2 midfielders this week so they can hold on to Foden rather than say sell Foden for a midfielder. Perhaps the idea is they sell a defender for a defender. I don't know, man. That feels like
is that a long-term formation?
That's the other. Well, I don't think so. I imagine it would then some of those defenders would be benched again in the future once Foden doesn't have a blank, and once Haaland, I assume, doesn't have a blank. But then again, it looks long term because that looks long term to me. I would not want that long term.
No, don't go 5 defenders long term. Even 5 defenders this week
still won't
not work
great.
out.
So in isolation, rank these 3 players for Gameweek 29 only from Fingerman Bob: Fofana, Muniz, Wissa. Wow, that is a tough one. I hate to say this, but I really like Fofana. I like, even though I've got currently double Brentford defense on my free hit. I definitely prefer Fofana.
Wissa's top, right? Wissa's top for me. It's
okay. So you'd go Wissa, Muniz, Fofana, and I guess I'm
Wissa, Fofana, Muniz for me.
Fofana. Okay, yeah. So I think for me it's Fofana, Wissa, Muniz. In all of these, I see Muniz as like literally an enabler that I will only play this week if I was buying him. Whereas I would be far more excited this week by either of Fofana or Wissa personally. So for this week only, it's for you, it's Wissa, for me, it's Fofana, and for both of us. Muniz is actually last just for this week.
Yeah.
Jack Aldridge, Alanga or Kudus? Oof.
Elanga.
I think for me, it's Alanga having had a longer rest, but that's such a lazy answer. I had a look just while
Yeah.
we were midstream, and Kudus got subbed like pretty much close to the 90th minute, so that's enough to scare me. Thingamabob, similarly, 29 in isolation. Who's your number one midfield pick? 7 million and under. I think it has to be Leon Bailey for this week only. Who would it be for you?
7
Midfielder
million.
under
Yep.
7 million.
Leon Bailey.
I think the only other person that I would take, if I heard he starts guaranteed, is Richarlison, who's 6.9 million instead of a Madison. That's what I would like.
Yes.
If I knew
Agreed.
that, like, oh, Madison's definitely like, if embargo quotes come out later, they're like, yeah, the reason he wasn't in training is because he's actually like picked up a knock, and I'll be like, oh, is it? Oh, okay, all right, Richarlison, you're coming in. But I want both. I want a second Spurs mid most likely, and Leon Bailey. But Leon Bailey, I'll go for under 7 million. That's my guy. Paneka Productions, Tony Wissa and Fofana up top. No Watkins. That is very exciting. If you want to back against that crowd, and if you want to just say, you know what, I don't think Watkins plays, I'm not going to be one of these people who holds him, plays him, has a bench option, praying in case, then I really like that. That's like a no nonsense. You're going to go straight
that's
in.
the front. That's the front three I went with in my hypothetical free hit in my thread is Tony Captain, Wissa, and Fofana up top. That's my front three.
I really like that, man. I really like that. So what else do we have? We have, is Roycelev a good pick for the goal threat from Paneka Productions?
I think the goals will come from the forwards, not from the wide players. Certainly not. So I would prefer the deliveries from Reguilon and set
Fair
pieces.
enough. Best goalkeeper, looking at someone to make the most saves, don't see any clean sheets. You said Emi Martinez, right?
Martinez number 1, Leno number 2 for me, and Areola number 3, I guess.
Fair enough. So Matt Bugsby actually makes a good point about why I had, I guess, the two Spurs mids, because again, I'm not going to get two defenders. We're saying maybe don't even play a Spurs defender or free hit. So he says getting multiple Spurs attackers is for security of returns rather than multiple returns. So we're not expecting that they're all going to return. We're just like, we don't know which one will. So let's just have at least two so that one of them does. But I get that logic. That could work.
So
that could
so
work.
One for the price of two.
Pick.
One for the price of two. Cool.
Yeah,
Good luck with that. I say no.
You say just have Son, be done with it, and bring in like a Leon Bailey or a we were saying anyone really, like even Kudus.
Richarlison
like,
would be the exception.
Elanga.
I do agree with you though.
So Richarlison, if you knew he started, you'd be up for that one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So Combe, I'll let you know. He said, does Nima know they'll come back after the free hit? No, they're gone. They're long gone. Like I sold them like 4 game week 28. I hit them out. Yeah. Like I got rid. I was like, you know what? I could just play a Stupinian one last time before he leaves, but no, I'm going to -4 him out for 0 point Kirkes. So fantastic. Elron Cubber, good to see you, buddy. How are you? Finn Shear asks, Finn Shear, Kudus or Madison for Garnacho? Based on what we said so far, it sounds like a Kudus situation to me. Well, I guess what's the chip strategy, right? Because if you're not going to free hit in 34 and Garnacho plays twice in 34 and you don't have a wild card set up for it, is there a world in which you're selling Garnacho and buying him back within the next 4 weeks? I don't know, man.
Madison is a top option in game week 30
against Luton, right?
They play player that plays between the lines against Luton.
So long term. So Madison was like, from a matchup this week only point of view, wasn't your pick. But actually, if you were going to pick Madison or Kudus and you're going to keep them, Madison's the one you'd go for then. Kudus just more for this week.
Madison. Yeah.
Cool. Let's keep going. Claire says, I'm not sure if I'll keep Watkins this week or just hope my first sub Bailey auto subs on for him. If I get rid of Ollie to Tony and play Tony, Wissa, Muniz. That is an ideal front three. You could maybe argue for Fana instead of Muniz, but would you sell Watkins to get Tony in? Is there enough doubt?
Yes.
Even if you had Leon Bailey ready on the bench to come on? Because essentially by buying Tony, I guess you're blocking any hope of Bailey subbing on, right? Like that's gone
So
basically.
here's Watkins. Here's Watkins, right? Watkins doubt this week. We just don't know,
Yep.
right? So we'll
Yep.
just call
Yeah,
it
we just
doubt.
don't know.
Then Wolves, City, Brentford, Arsenal. Tony has Burnley, United, Brighton, Villa, Sheffield United, Luton.
He could do well in every game and be avoided because he doesn't have doubles. So he could end up being someone who you get points with going forwards, and you're like one move ahead of the pack.
Tony's a better asset than Watkins from now on.
I think, yeah, I would keep an eye out for any news, but with it being the Sunday game, it doesn't look like we're going to get any. That's the difficulty, right? So Matt Bugsby asks, will Villa play Tielemans with Douglas Luiz or Irio Gabunum? I'm not sure if that, I don't know. Firstly, I'm just going to be honest there and be like, I don't know who the second player is, but yeah, I'll let you
They
put up
like
with my
the villains
Tielemans.
like him. He's a kid
Okay.
academy. They really like him, developing well. I think Tielemans will play actually an advanced role and could be kind of interesting as a sneaky punt if you really want to go like totally rogue. But again, Tielemans in that 10 role will be up against two very capable center mids and Edson Alvarez and Socek. So not my favorite, but I do think I think we start to see that attacking Tielemans we saw at Leicester a little bit.
Nice. We'll keep going quickly. So Michael had asked best goalkeeper. So I think we did say Martinez, then Leno. This is just a props to you from FPL Rover, so not a question, but huge props to Gabe's matchup thread last week for motivating the Semenyo triple captain shout. I think if you triple captain Semenyo ahead of Solanke last week, you are laughing. You are absolutely laughing.
Rover had a great time.
Yeah, like fair play to Gabe for the call and for captaining him too, and fair play to Rover for popping that triple captain on him. So wow, well done, guys. So Fadil Khan, if you're still here, you said no captaincy metrics. Yeah, so if you go to last week's video, you'll see I've replied on a couple of the comments from the Net That Haul account explaining why there's no captaincy metrics for the rest of the season. But essentially, all our thoughts are with FPL Mariner Chris and his son Kieran. He's put it out there on his X account that his son is suffering from lymphoma and he's going through treatment at the moment. So for the foreseeable future, while he's obviously focused on much more important things with his family, we will not be bothering him to get the captaincy metric for now or the FDRs. So we'll kind of reassess where we're at with that in the summer, and we just hope him to have a smooth, hopefully, fight and to keep recovering and to keep going through the treatment. And Kieran, all of us are with you from Net That Haul and all the haulers in the chat. And yeah, if you want to donate to the cause as well for cancer research, Chris has put a link on X that you can go and donate on. So thank you, Fardil. So Shaz asks, no free hit. -8 hit from Madison or Brennan Johnson, Tony or Wissa, Willian or Wilson. I need to choose one among each option. Okay, so in those options, I would be going Tony over Wissa personally, because like this is someone you're going to hold for the long term, as we just said. Willian or Wilson, either one could be dropped for each other. So I would be going Iwobi between those two, but between Willian and Wilson, I just can't call who's going to start. So for me, it would be neither. I'm sorry. It would have to be Iwobi.
Madison, Tony, Iwobi.
Madison, Tony, Iwobi. Yeah, I think that's for me. That's what I would do as well, Shaz. Okay, so if Colm says my team's okay for 34, I'll free hit in Gameweek 38 again. So we'll talk more about Gameweek 38 free hit. Nice. It's quite fun, isn't it? Having all 10 games at once. FPL Rover, would you go for Wood instead of Muniz if it still allows Salah in for a free next week? No. I think Wood just scares me. I just wouldn't do it. Yeah, like, because it might still fund Salah next week, but who is it not going to fund 3 weeks after that? You're still going to have that money tied up for a player you're literally never going to start again.
And Wood, I don't think Wood starts. I think it's Awani this week, and I don't like the start anyway. That kind of solitary 9 against a 3 center backs. Bad tactical fit.
For sure. Fingermore just made a comment about Iwobi is awesome in transitions, superb asset next 2 weeks. So they also mentioned Fofana as well as another option. So I think in that case, like we really liked Fofana this week, but that I wouldn't mind so much. I think I prefer Fofana over Wood all day. As funny as it would be to have Wood in your team and make fun puns about it, it's not worth it. You're not going to get that hat trick some people got.
There's recently. There's another show that does that a lot, so we'll leave that to them.
Yeah, we don't need any Wood, but Young Adis asks, should I bring in Tony for Solanke? I'm not on a free hit for a -4, and then another -4 in 2 to 3 weeks. I have 10 playing players, 6 attacking. I think you're so well set up for this week that there's an argument that even if you use that transfer for Tony, that is okay. But at the same time, you could try to back against him, I guess. That's the other thought. Like, because Solanke's got a great fixture in game with 30. I think for someone like you, I would be looking at that Coventry versus Wolves match in the FA Cup, which kicks off like a little bit before FPL deadline tomorrow. And if it looks like, like that Bournemouth double game week's going to happen at 34, not 37, with the great fixture in 30, I would play with 10 because there are going to be people around your rank with like 7, 6, 7, 8 players or -8, -12,
10 is
-16.
great. 10 is
You can
way
play
better
with
than
10.
the average.
Yeah, I think if you're going to bring in Tony for that hit, I would be looking to captain him personally, because I just keep an eye out. Now, obviously, if it looks like that Bournemouth 34 isn't going to happen, and I think we're going to be 75 minutes into that FA Cup game between Coventry and Wolves. If it looks like it's not going to happen, then yeah, maybe then okay, yeah, sell Solanke at that point. But it's a tough one. You got to keep an eye on it. Claire mentioned she's on a free hit 29, by the way. So the idea of should she still have Watkins with Bailey first bench, or just go for the other front three. So I think it was like Muniz, Fofana, and Tony, I guess, something like that. Or Wissa. I think it was Wissa. It was probably something like Wissa, Tony, and one of Fofana or Muniz, something like that. And so would you then on a free
I think
hit
it's
just
personal
take that
preference.
I think it's personal preference. You seem like maybe you're convinced he won't play because obviously you said earlier in the chat that Arteta also said Martinelli would be fine from the cut and he wasn't. So if your gut feel is that he's not going to play, I don't want to be the one who told you keep Watkins and then have Bailey on the bench. If you're sure with your gut,
and I think even if you do have Watkins, I think you start Bailey, irrespective. Just start Bailey.
Fine, cool. All right. So what else do we have? Any final ones? So this is not a question; it's just discomfort replying. Kira's replying to the advice earlier about the 2 mids and 1 forward or 3 mids. He said, "Thank you for the advice. I've decided to ignore you, Nima. Take a -12 for Fofana, Iwobi, Louise, and Alanga. The free hit 38 dream remains." So another person considering the free hit. I think you did it last season at the FPL meets, didn't you? Like when we do the game with 38 and there's 100 people all together watching the games, looking at the chaos unfold. It must be quite fun being on that free hit. But I'll tell you what won't be fun, Kieran, when you've been sitting there at the pub for a few hours before the deadline at FPL meets, and you're there trying to get leaks on 20 different teams, and you're there like panicking and changing the free hit team, and you hear someone's got a knock, someone didn't travel, someone pulled up with a hammy in the warm-up. It can be super fun, I'm sure, but I do not want to be thinking about that. Plus, I land from a flight at 2:40 p.m. in the UK after being on a plane for 4 hours. So whatever I have in 38 is going to have to come without leaks. So for me, free hit 38 is not an option. I'll be flying. But for you, buddy, I like those picks on the hit. I have no problem with any of those picks you've picked. I like every single one of them. So you went against the advice, but it's okay. It's okay. Final one, FPL Rover. Would you take a -4 to sell Estupinian? So you have someone playing in 30, 31, and 32. And would you go for either Regulon or Udogi? I need to see I don't know Brentford's longer term fixtures, so I'm just having a look because
I'll read them out to you. So after Burnley, they're not good. United, Brighton, they're both home, which is good. The United and Brighton. Then it's Villa. Then it's Sheffield United and Luton. So, Brentford's fixtures get good, I guess, in game week 33. Sheffield United, Luton, Everton, Fulham, Bournemouth. Spurs
have great fixtures over the next 4. So they have Luton home, they have Forest home in 32. Like if you're playing this player in all of 29 to 32, I think it has to be the Spurs player, despite what we think for this week. But I think I'm just having a look as well on the ticker. So from a defensive ticker on like the FDR for Fantasy Football Hub, for defense between game 29 and 32, Spurs are the top one. And when you look for Brentford, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're like halfway down the table. But bear in mind,
if you look from 33 to like say 36,
then it'll probably be
Brentford will be at the top.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just looking at 33 to 36. They're much higher up because you got Sheffield United home, Luton away, Everton away, Fulham home. It's much better. At that point,
It's better.
Tottenham will be bottom. Newcastle away, Man
Right, and
City
Tottenham
home,
goes
Arsenal
down.
home, Liverpool away. Yeah, so that they completely switch. So if it's for these weeks, I would go for Doggy as much as I love Regulon this week. So who else do we have? We have a question from Nehal that I'll answer. We've got a few more that came in since I started them, and then we will get out of here because we're definitely way over the time. These ones will be quick fire game because we do need to leave. So this is just a comment. If you look at these sort of things, Madison's record at Craven Cottage is played free, scored 2, assisted 3. I don't look at those things, but if you do in the chat, and I know a lot of people do, go for it. Nehal, pick 2 between Kudus, Bailey, Iwobi, Alanga, and Kulusevski. Bailey and Alanga for me. What about you?
Bailey and Alanga for me as well.
If Wolves win, are Bournemouth 100% No. It just means that it might be like 70% to 30%. Like, even still, we're never going to know before the Gameweek 29 deadline. I think the guarantees will come in those 2-week breaks in the international break when they schedule the fixtures and give the fans the notice. But it would definitely increase the odds of making Bournemouth a more worthwhile hold than rolling out with 10, mate. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, for me, that's a tough one. But like, I would go and check Ben Crellin because he is definitely like written out every possible iteration and how much he thinks each percentage would move the likelihood of the double game week moving between those two. Nehal's on free hit 29 as well. Yeah, on free hit, Bailey and Alanga still for me. Free hit 30, not for me. You could do it if your team looks bad, but I won't be doing it 30. I'd still prefer 34, 37, 38, even 35 or 36 if Chelsea end up with a double in one of those. Not for me. And yeah, so to be fair, so Kieran did last season get 96 at that FPL meet. So he is an expert at these last minute free hits with somehow having to adapt to news about 20 different teams kicking off at the same time. He has managed to do it successfully before, almost got a century in a single game week out of it. So yeah, fair play to you, FPL Discomfort. Thank you everyone who tuned in. We had, I think, at our peak, almost over 50 people watching live. So we really appreciate all the haulers.
Excellent.
Thank you for your support. Good luck in the Blank Game Week. Enjoy the international break while we also take a break next week. We will see you all back for Game Week 30 after a nice break, ready for the run-in, ready for the Champions League. And hopefully when both of our teams game, go on to knock out both Man City and Bayern and meet each other in the semi-final is what I'm hoping. This is going to be the first Net That FPL matchup, like in 4 years now, 4 seasons. And obviously Grimsby Town was never going to play Real Madrid or Arsenal. Let's be real here. No offense to you,
exactly.
But Real Madrid also, this could be a dream. It could come.
You guys have finally stepped up. Somebody finally stepped up to play us and
to see you. Yeah.
Well, not yet.
Well, we still have to get past
City.
Yeah. We both got to get through our own respective demons and get our respective revenges for things that have happened to our teams at the hands of those two opponents. But I'm very excited. It's been nice to chat to you all in the live chat. You've all been very.
Don't forget to smash that like on the way out. Show the love.
Do. It's only the second time we asked in an hour and a half, and the first time was an hour. So I think most people probably don't even hear us plugging it because this is the second week in a row I forgot to put the ticker at the bottom that says hit like and subscribe, and we'll answer your questions at the end. So maybe third week in a row I won't make that mistake because they say, what is it? Once you fool me 3 times, like shame on me. The first 1 or 2 times, shame on you. But if I don't put that ticker up next week, the shame is definitely on me, right? So thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Have a great break. Enjoy this last game week. And honestly, like, big love to you all. You're all great. We love you all so much. And see you next time. Peace.